for second reading a bill to establish an agency that will manage recovered assets and properties derived from unlawful activities. The bill proposes the amendment of the Proceeds of Crime, Recovery and Management Act to address the overlapping roles of various agencies of government. What would be the role of this agency when established, and how can it achieve its mandate? These are some of the issues we shall be looking at today on the program. Thanks for joining us on Nigeria Today. I'm Ikaria Clinton. Now, with me in the studio to expand the discourse is Hamzat Lawal. He's a founder, Connected Development Code, and also founder, Follow the Money. It's good to have you on Nigeria Today.
Thank you for having me.
And also with us, joining us via Zoom to speak to the topic is Reverend David Ugolo. He's Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice, ANEJ. It's good to have you join us, Reverend David.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, I'll start with you, Hamzat. What do you make of this bill?
I think it's timely. You know, we've since when we signed up on the Open Government Partnership, and one of the principles under OGP is asset declaration and asset recovery. Declaration in the sense that when you're a public official, the Nigerian people are meant to know what asset you have, and that's why for every appointee you have an asset declaration form. Asset recovery, in terms of when there's mismanagement, embezzlement, a lot of these public officials use this illicit resources to, get assets. And usually when our anti-corruption agency, be it EFCC, CBB, CCB, ICPC, when they do their investigation and prosecute some of these people, assets are being recovered. But in most cases, there is no coordinated effort when these assets are recovered, and how this asset goes back to other people that have, have been duped by these other public officials and giving back their asset, or if government decides to use it, or maybe even liquidate it and put the resources into the national budget so it can fund other capital projects. There's no coordinated effort around it. For me, I support this bill, even if I still believe we need to review it further, in as much as we're saying we want to cut the cost of governance. So for my own is, how can we have this agency but pool resources, human capital resources, from ICPC, from EFCC, from CCB, and this agency serves as the coordinating agency for all the assets that are being recovered. So that, because today, even if we do anti-corruption work, there's no central database where you see all the assets that have been recovered from proceeds of corruption. ICPC has her database, EFCC has her database, CCB have their database, Ministry of Justice have their database. So this agency is timely, and this probably would also show that Nigeria is on the pathway to fighting corruption. And as we fight corruption, whatever asset is being recovered, we have an agency saddled with the responsibility to coordinate, to ensure that when we recover them effectively, we can also tell the Nigerian people how we're deploying this asset for their own benefit, because these resources that were diverted was for public good.
Okay, over to you, Reverend Ugolo. You've heard Hamzat in his opening remark there. I will ask you the same question. What do you make of this bill?
Is the question posed to me? Sorry, I missed that.
What do you make of this bill, the bill that just passed the second reading, talking about the management of, crime proceeds? Setting up an agency that will take care of that.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I also want to greet my brother there. First, one of the key things that have come out very strongly in this second reading of this bill that has just been passed in the Senate is that they've talked about the central management of the assets, management of the asset, and they're looking for opportunity. But what we currently have in the Act is that the different anti-corruption agencies have their own directorate on asset management. And that's how the Act was structured. And what that means is that the provisions enables EFCC, ICPC, and other anti-corruption agencies that are also involved in asset recovery and management to directly take responsibility for the management of every asset that they have been able to secure through either court forfeiture or through no conviction-based approach. But what this bill is currently seeking to address is that they want to centralize the management of those assets. And if you know, initially, the first process when this proceed of crime act was initiated, the initial provision was looking into having a central asset management system. And the reason behind that was that they expected that all the agencies, particularly EFCC, ICPC, they have been overburdened with the work of carrying out investigation, prosecution. Adding the issue of management will again overstress their capacity and resources. And as you know, these resources that is recovered is needed to pursue quite a number of development. And so what these bill that is not being initiated, this amendment that is not being initiated at the Senate will seek to do is to look into the current provision where the anti-corruption agency are currently managing the asset through the establishment of the Directorate of Asset Management, having a central asset management agency. And for me, that will take the burden away from the anti-corruption agency, and that will make it more easier for transparency and accountability, and that will take the burden completely out of some of these agencies that, for example, just recently you have seen that EFCC haven't confiscated the asset from the former central bank governor. They have now handed to the Minister for Housing. You know, that process again will be more economical, more than the skills and the capacity to be able to manage assets is not readily found in anti-corruption agency across the country. What we want to see is that there are people who are trained to have capacity. Take, for instance, if you seize an asset like a hotel, big hotel business, and that's what we have seen in the case of Alamisia. And because the anti-corruption agency didn't have the capacity to manage those assets, you see them beginning to go down. And we have had so much asset spread across the country that is wasting. But if we've got a central asset management agency that has the capacity, and then you put in place professional, then it will become a big source of income for the country.
Okay, now back to you, Hamzat. You talked about reviewing this bill further. What would you be, recommending if you are to review it further?
I think first is to bring all this personnel in the different anti-corruption agency and form synergy with them. So you bring all these people that have the experience from EFCC, ICPC, and various anti-corruption agency. But also when we now have this agency is to invest in building their capacity and enhancing their capacity so that they would be able to effectively manage these assets and deploy them for national development. Also is, we need to clearly state which, this agency, which MDA would it be under? And for me, I think it should be under the presidency. Because we need it to be truly independent and also have the political will and the political access to power so that the president can take power from the president and report directly to the president. Yes, we know that there's a coordinating mechanism between all the anti-corruption agencies, and I know recently even ICPC and EFCC signed an MOU. So when there's a petition or when there's dual petition, one to EFCC and ICPC on a singular case, what happens is they either collaborate or they step down and one anti-corruption agency take it further. So I think that let this amendment clearly state who would be in charge and which parastatal of government it would be on there, so that they can derive all the political will and the powers. Also, maybe they set up a board within the agency that have representatives from the academics, the media, civil society, even private sector, and various government agencies, maybe Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Justice, because the board will now provide that oversight and ensure that they're able to provide support for the day-to-day running by the executive that would be formed under this agency, or the management rather. So I think these are some of the areas. And from the proceeds, and let's also look at finance. How do we fund this agency? And I think a percentage from the proceeds should go to the admin overhead for this agency, so we don't have to continue to put pressure on our national budget. And there's a lot of assets that have been recovered, and a lot of them are just lying fallow and deteriorating because we don't have effective asset recovery management mechanism in country. So, because I'm sure when these agencies form, first they have to even take stock, looking at what has EFCC recovered, what has ICPC recovered, what has CC be recovered, and how to also match all of this together. And I think one thing that needs to be clear, and when this is amended, when EFCC or ICPC or other anti-corruption body recover any asset, they hand it over to them, and there should be a very clear, distinct legal and regulatory framework, and I believe this is what this act can help us achieve. The good thing is, after it has passed second reading, now it goes to committee, and I know from June there will be public hearing, and I believe during the public hearing we can submit our memorandum, but also attend this public hearing and share our views around it and continue to strengthen this process. Again, it's part of our commitment as a country on open government partnership, and we believe this will deepen our transparency and accountability.
Now, Reverend Ugolo, oftentimes some experts have said reduce cost of governance, and here we are trying to, with this bill, if passed into law, we have another agency that's, doing some of the things you've mentioned that EFCC does, which is management of assets, proceeds from crime. Now, will the establishment of this agency not impact negatively on our already limited resources?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Reverend Ugolo?
Can you repeat your question again? I didn't hear that.
Oftentimes, experts have said reduce cost of governance, and here we are trying to talk about, establishing another agency, that will do something similar to what, part of what the AFCC, the ICPC are doing. Will the establishment of this agency not impact on our already limited resources?
Yes. First, I like to say that, yes, when you looked at the current act itself, having almost about 18 agencies having their own different asset management directorate, you will agree with me that it requires a lot of resources to maintain those agencies across board. And that, so I completely agree with Senator Idiat Adebule, who is sponsoring this amendment, that there should be a central asset management institution in the country, and that will centralize, and it will increase the efficiency of how we manage recovered asset. As a matter of fact, it's a good practice, and other jurisdictions like United States, other countries like UK, they centralize and centralize this management in a way that it increases efficiency. It again reduces cost. And if you look issue of cost of governance in Nigeria, is a huge problem. To maintain the 18 agency that is under this law with their different directorate on management, that's a big problem. But even more striking and lessons to derive is a question of capacity, competence. Most of the anti-corruption agency don't have competence on asset management. You see, and the resources to do it. I remember as a member of the Presidential Committee on Asset Recovery Management, I can see, I've gone around the country, the waste, the asset recovered that's supposed to have been put on good use, wasting away because of lack of management. So this bill, like my friend rightly also noted, will require a kind of a presidential political will to bring all the anti-corruption agency to cooperate, because one of the things that actually struck out this Central Asset Management Agency in the previous bill before it was passed was the antagonism of the anti-corruption agency resisting an attempt to have a central agency. Obviously, the incentive to control and beginning to decide what happens to assets seized can be put in a proper perspective for everybody to understand. But recent happening have demonstrated clearly that if we are to make good use of recovered asset in the country, which is very important and it could serve as a better source of revenue for the country, then we have to look for a good practice. And I think that's where this amendment will gain the attraction. But potential resistance will come from the anti-corruption agency, obviously resisting the attempt to centralize the asset management system, the database system. And once you have this kind of central system, it becomes more efficient. And the anti-corruption agency can form part of the board of governance system, so that at the end of the day, there could be an efficiency cooperation, which I think that this amendment wants to achieve. But the most important thing is that we require the president of the country to take leadership in this process, because it's a huge amount of resources, and because don't underestimate the capacity of the anti-corruption agency to resist an attempt of having a central system in the country.
Okay, we'll take a short break now. The conversation will continue after the break. Don't go away.
Of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow under digital economy for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different? We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that are questions have been designed to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today. Welcome back. This is still Nigeria Today, and we are looking at a process of crime management. Of course, the bill that was just passed the second reading at the Senate. Now, we have two gentlemen, one via Zoom, of course, one here in the studio. Now, Hamzat, I know Reverend Ugolo had mentioned some of the challenges. Now, from your own perspective, what potential challenge do you see this agency, should this bill pass into law? What potential challenge do you see this agency facing in the future?
I think first is how they're able to take stock on the current assets that they have to manage. You know, taking stock from across the country, but from different government departments and agencies. 18 of them or even more, and that's first. Two is how they're also able to raise awareness around what are their roles and how they can get support from the government. Because you see, the interesting thing is, if we get it right, people naturally will even blow whistle and say, that person got what they have from proceeds of corruption or from embezzlement or misappropriation of public resources. Another opportunity, because again, it depends on how you see it. If you see it as a problem, then it becomes a problem. Another opportunity is citizens' engagement. My brother made reference to the handover of assets just recently by EFCC to the Minister of Housing. Was there citizen engagement in that process? Another thing is also just to even have a central database where this proceeds or this asset, did we get it from forfeiture? Is it by you know, plea bargain. You know, just so you make it very transparent and people know, you know, where it's coming from. Then most importantly, who are the people saddled with the responsibility internally to manage it, and who provides oversight. Yes, we know that members of the Anti-Corruption Committee at the Senate and at the House, but you know, how do we as citizens, as civil society, continue to provide oversight? You know, and I agree, we must have that political will and support, you know, from the top, you know, from the president, because, you know, his body language would send a very strong message. And with this also, people that have tendency of corruption in the public sector, you know, would take a step back, because they've now seen that, you know, this proceeds, you know, with the declaration, we'll see where it's coming from, which politician, you know, what position they handle, and how they embezzle, mismanage, or misappropriate, you know, public resources to get these assets that have been recovered by Anti-Corruption Agency and handed over to the Asset Management Agency.
Okay. Now, Reverend Ugolo, you know, just like you rightly mentioned, we also have asset management, you know, function. The EFCC does that, the ICPC, and of course other agencies. We have about, like you rightly mentioned, then of course is on record 18 of them. Now, how can this agency be efficient, so much so that it will achieve the aim at the end of the day? What would you want to see do? What would you want to see them do differently? Can you hear me?
I said, hello, sorry. Can you hear me now? So I said, what is really important at this point in time, so that we don't go the route where what happened in the past administration, is for the President Tinubu, to take leadership in this process. And I'm happy that there is a national summit coming up on the 27th on asset recovery, which hopefully the President will be declaring it open, and all the key anti-corruption agency will be there, and key stakeholders will be there. Hopefully the outcome of such consultation and summit will lead to a better asset management architecture in Nigeria. The most important thing is that we want to see a proceed of crime framework that will work well, that will reduce wastage, which we have seen right from the time of Obasanjo to the point we are today. And if we are to improve on the implementation of the Proceed of Crime Act in Nigeria, I think this amendment put forward by Senator Adebolu is a welcome development. And my appeal to the anti-corruption agency in the country is not to kill this initiative, because we need debate.
Okay, it's like we have a little bit of network issues there. So, Hamzat, you heard what I asked. What would the people, Nigerians, want to, you know, what would they want to see differently? Or what would you want to see differently?
Is to see that this act is the light of the day, where Nigerian people continue to add their voice and support this entire process and value chain, attend the public hearing, call your lawmakers to support it, and maybe just to add my voice to appeal to Anti-Corruption Agency. Real change is a process. You know, let's look beyond our immediate gratification, because you know what this act seeks to do is collapse all these directorates and just have one central unit. And if they're there for selfless effort, you know, we should support this entire process and value chain. And I know that the chairman of ICPC, for instance, in the region is the chair for asset recovery. You know, this already sends a signal that, you know, Nigeria is really serious, and that's why from the regional perspective, Nigeria, a head of a Nigerian anti-corruption agency is heading it. Let's take it a step further and create an agency saddled with that responsibility so that other African countries will come and learn from us.
Thank you very much. That was Hamzat Lawal, founder, Connected Development Code, and also founder, Follow the Money. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
For having me.
And we had via Zoom, Reverend David Ugolo, Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice and Aid. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us. And thank you for being part of the program. Don't forget, Nigeria Today airs every weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can also check out this episode and others on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. I'm Eukaria Clinton. Goodbye.